Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We know your time is limited, but your curiosity is not. You shared some really dense research with us, and our mission today is to cut straight through all the theoretical noise and get right to the functional architecture.
That's it.
Today, we are digging deep into Ushkee, a system that pretty famously defines itself by just one thing, motion. So we're going to forget the buzzwords, forget the philosophy for a second.
For now, yeah.
We just want to understand the mechanics. How does this system actually work? How does it get people off the sideline?
And that's the core mission. I mean, the source documents are so clear. Ushkee is motion. But to really get it, to understand how it sustains itself, we have to look past the what and into the how. We have to trace that progression. You know, how you go from just discovering it to participating in a really specific way, and then how that leads to actual verifiable movement.
It's the difference between being a spectator at the racetrack and being part of the crew that's actually maintaining the car. It's a huge shift, both psychologically and, practically. And the system's designed to reward that.
Right.
But you have to see that gulf between the two states first. Okay, so let's start with what's familiar. When you find a new project, a brand, whatever it is, the vast majority of us, we start out as observers.
Right.
We just watch, we scroll, we consume. It's passive.
That's the default setting for almost every platform ever built, right? They're optimized for your eyes, your clicks, basically your time spent watching. You're a data point, a valuable one, but you're stationary.
But the architecture here in Ushkee, it demands something different. The source material it's really explicit about this. The health of the entire system relies on moving people from observer to active participant.
It's not just encouraged, it's a structural requirement.
That's a requirement, yeah.
The observer is just watching value move around, kind of hoping to benefit from being close to it.
Right, from proximity.
But the participant in this system is actively contributing to the engine that creates that movement. It's the difference between just liking the idea, you follow it, you're aligned with it, and being actively responsible for it. And that small shift, that's where the value starts to happen.
So if the system is designed to anchor value in action, not just status, then the very first move you have to make is getting a seat at the table.
Okay, let's unpack this idea of ownership, because Ushkee really redefines it. Traditionally, ownership, buying a stock, getting a collectible, that's the end goal. You put your stake down, and then you just wait. You wait for other people's work to make it more valuable.
And the original research here just flips that script completely. Ownership in the Ushkee ecosystem it's explicitly called the entry point. It's a mandatory first step for participation, but it's kind of meaningless on its own.
So you've just aligned yourself with the possibility of motion.
That's it, perfectly. Okay, so what does owning a Ushkee digital collectible actually get you then? Beyond just holding the asset, it has to connect you to the operational layers, right?
It does, yeah. The white paper breaks it down into 3 immediate things. First, you get a position on the ledger, so the system can track you. Second, you get a connection to all future activity, reward formulas, that kind of thing.
And the third?
And critically third, it gives you a role that's defined by governance protocols, which are basically your permissions to start moving.
And that role part is key. So it's not just an asset you're hoping goes up in value. It sounds more like a literal key.
It's a key to governance and operational access. And with that key, you're immediately connected to verifiable resource flows.
Okay, what does that mean in practice?
It means access to special merchandise loops. It means validated attendance at real-life events, eligibility for community rewards, all the opportunities to participate.
So ownership creates alignment.
Ownership creates alignment, but, and we have to keep saying this, participation creates motion.
You've bought the credentials, but you haven't actually checked in yet. The whole system is set up so the value of those credentials is tied to the velocity that you and everyone else generate together.
Exactly.
So if participation is the catalyst, how is motion actually tracked? How is it quantified? And this is where it gets really interesting, because we need the technical answers now, not just the theory.
Right.
If motion is value circulating, instead of sitting still, what's the architecture that measures that?
Okay, so this is the critical technical layer. The system runs on something the sources call contribution metrics. They're all aggregated on a distributed ledger, and they track verifiable actions.
Okay.
The reward for those actions is something called velocity points. Motion is quite literally the accrual of these velocity points. It's proof that value moved because of what you did.
Velocity points. Okay, that's the specific mechanic we needed. Now let's get concrete. Give us the examples of actions that actually generate these points. How does this theory, hit the road?
Let's make it specific. First one is merchandise support. But this isn't just, passive consumption. The system rewards you for supporting merch that's explicitly designed with an internal recirculation token.
A recirculation token, what does that do?
It means a portion of that transaction is immediately and verifiably channeled right back into the ecosystem to fund the next operational step. You're buying something that keeps the engine running.
Got it. So the tracking is built right into the purchase.
Yeah.
That's smart. Okay, what's the second type of motion?
Second is participation in real-life events. Motion is generated when you convert that digital alignment into real, tangible community strength.
Showing up in person.
Showing up. And it requires a verifiable, decentralized check-in protocol at these physical gatherings. It confirms you were there, you were engaged, and then it releases velocity points to your account.
Physical presence generates verifiable velocity. Okay. Third example.
Engaging in focused, productive discussions. And the sources are really careful about this. It's not about generating noise.
Right, not just chatter.
Not just chatter. Velocity points are generated when your engagement leads to codified governance proposals or specific actionable roadmap decisions. The system tracks discussion that results in forward direction.
And the fourth one. The one about spreading clarity, not height. I mean, how is clarity measurable motion? That feels a bit abstract.
It's tracked by creating and sharing verifiable educational content or explanatory summaries that are then validated by the community for accuracy. Hype is just passive excitement. Clarity requires active work.
The act of teaching and reducing friction for new people.
Exactly. That is a measurable contribution to the flow of the system.
That makes a lot of sense. But if the system is rewarding these actions with velocity points, that brings up a huge question. How do the sources deal with people trying to game the system?
Malicious participation, yeah.
Right. What stops someone from just spamming governance discussions or faking an event check-in just to rack up points?
The architecture addresses that with a decay and verification mechanism. Velocity points only hold their full weight for a certain amount of time, which encourages continuous, real contribution, not just one-off bursts.
Okay, so they expire, in a way.
And more importantly, a lot of point allocation is tied to peer validation. The community itself has to verify that the contribution was useful, that it wasn't spam. So it's designed to reward sustained, high-quality collective effort. And given that we're measuring motion, not just noise, it's so important to clarify for you, the learner, that there is absolutely no single correct way to participate in Ushkee.
That's a huge relief point. Because often with these models, it feels like you have to become a full-time community manager or some public figure to even be relevant.
No, the sources suggest a totally different path. They show this wide diversity. Some people are just dedicated collectors. They provide liquidity. Their motion is subtle, but they're securing the asset base. Others are mostly event participants. They're the physical velocity. Then you have others who support quietly through that merchandise loop, basically acting as financial fuel.
And then, of course, you have the more active contributors, the ones focused on the conversation and the clarity, the more high-visibility roles.
Right. The diversity is the system's strength, because it means that lots of small actions can stack together. The only real requirement, according to the documents, is intentional action, not volume.
Your individual contribution is weighted by verification, not by how loud you are.
Precisely.
That is so encouraging for anyone who might feel overwhelmed by systems that only seem to reward people who already have influence. The message is pretty clear. You don't need influence. You don't need a title. You don't need permission from some central gatekeeper.
You just need to move. The system is built to recognize that a small, verified contribution from a quiet participant is infinitely more valuable than a passive observer, no matter what their status is. Participation scales to your capacity to act.
Let's zoom out a little bit. Let's shift from the micromechanics, the velocity points, to the macro, the systemic importance. Why build a system so intensely focused on motion and circulation? I mean, it's a direct challenge to the models we're used to.
Yeah, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, traditional systems, whether they're financial or community-based, they all operate on a model of consolidation.
Meaning value flows up.
Value flows up and it pools at the top. It rewards status and speculation. Ushkee is designed on the principle of circulation.
And how is that principle, written into the system's goals?
Well, first, to circulate value continuously, using those recirculation tokens and rewards to fuel the next cycle. Second, to encourage genuine contribution by making the barrier to entry for motion really low. But the biggest one is the third goal.
Which is?
It's designed to systematically reward participation over speculation.
And that's the biggest difference. That's why the velocity points are so critical.
Yeah.
If I just buy my ownership asset and I sit on it,
Right.
if I speculate, my position actually decays because I'm not contributing motion.
Precisely. If the system sees mass stagnation, large holdings just sitting there, not generating any contribution metrics, it's structurally designed to question the health of that stasis. Motion is the core principle for vitality.
Wait, hold on. How does a system question stagnation? Does it actively punish people for not moving?
It creates systemic pressure. It doesn't directly punish you for just owning, but the ongoing circulation rewards dilute the value of that static ownership over time.
Oh,
If you stop moving, you stop generating velocity points. So your share of the new community rewards and influence, it just proportionally shrinks compared to everyone who's active. If everyone just owns and waits, the system basically starves itself. It forces a decision.
that's a fascinating self-correcting mechanism. It's a built-in economic pressure that constantly prioritizes being proactive, priorities velocity, to make sure the whole ecosystem stays focused on moving forward. Because just sitting still becomes, well, economically uncomfortable. Hashtag outro. This has been a really satisfying deep dive into the actual mechanics of Ushkee. For you, the listener, we've successfully mapped that journey. From passive ownership as just an entry point to active participation, and finally understanding how all these collective verifiable actions generate measurable velocity points and fuel that systemic motion.
The central takeaway really is that static ownership only gets you alignment. It's the active movement, the circulation, that guarantees the health and the growth of the system. The Ushkee framework is fundamentally demanding that you move.
And if we leave you with one final provocative thought, think about a system you're already part of. Maybe it's a decentralized organization, a political movement, even a big company you work for.
Yeah.
What would happen if your value and your rewards were suddenly tied not to your seniority or your job title or your status, but exclusively to a publicly verifiable score of circulation and intentional action? How drastically would the behavior of that organization change?
It's a great question.
Consider what those small actions stacking together would look like in that system, and how that model might solve that age-old problem of passive speculation and stagnation. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the practical architecture of motion. We'll catch you next time.